So we're going to do a team effort, Lynn and myself, today to talk about our project, which is called Empowering Maptivist. And it felt more appropriate, though, to think about our story today as an us and we, and how we think about how we collect data, which is something that we've been doing with students, and showing them how to use data and mapping to understand their neighborhood. So this project originally was intended to help us work with schools more effectively around issues of looking at, again, as I said, community issues, social justice issues, and helping students to understand them. But a lot of the, I think, early thoughts on the grant was, how do we support teachers? Because we are working in K-12 schools, so we did not have our own classes every day, but we're coming in as guest stars into and working over a series of several weeks with teachers or months, but not every day, and kind of on and off. And how could we provide materials, teaching approaches, lessons to teachers, and thus help us to understand how we could do this work more effectively. But over the course of the grant, we, and with working with Deb and ABCD, we really wanted to figure out ways that we could integrate student voice into the process. And over the last year, especially, we've been working towards this goal of teaching our own class, having our own class every day with a group of students, which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. And we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do that starting last year in the summer, thanks to some seed money from ABCD and IMLS allowing us to be able to pay students for their voices. So I'm going to hand it to Lynn. She has an anecdote to talk about some of the work and the interviews that we did with some of our students that we had worked with at the Muniz Academy and some other schools.
So I'm going to move you through a story sort of with a pseudonym for a student, sort of starting at the beginning of how we started working with students and how that progression happened over time. So at the very beginning of the grant, we were working with our Boston Maptivist initiative, which was to work within classrooms, as Michelle said, seeing students every now and then, and providing lessons related to their neighborhoods in Boston, and helping them learn how to analyze digit maps made with data mapping through GIS maps, and then learn to do some of it themselves. So through our process of this grant, we wanted to get some information from the students and to see what their experience of what we were doing with them was like. So we went into 3 of the schools that we're working with closely, and we picked a core group of students who were willing to be facilitators. And they met with us and designed questions along with us. We contributed some too, but they actually contributed most of the questions. We told them what we wanted to know, sort of what we were hoping for, and they designed an interview protocol for us. And then we had a larger group of students from those 3 schools, and the students who helped develop the protocol became the facilitators of those conversations with other students. So they came in, ran their protocol that they designed with some input from us, but not much. We didn't speak through any of the evaluation process. They did all of that. And they interviewed other students to talk about what mapping was like and what the impact was. So then some of those students, as we were building relationships with these young people, then we found out that we wanted to try to build an elective, which would be, we teach every day for an entire semester. So some of those students from the facilitator group then became paid advisors to us in co-designing the elective that we did with teachers and with students and with a couple other people, Black Girls Map, who are some women who work within Esri to work on those kinds of issues. And so some of those students came and became an advisory group to the elective that we're now teaching at the school at a new school. Actually, it's not a new school. It's with one of the schools from that original group, but we see students every day. And that original core group, which was stipended for their work, now we have relationships with them, and some of them want to continue working with us and might, we don't know for sure that this is going to happen, but my dream is that one of them at least is going to become a student, even though she's a freshman now in college, a student curator for our next exhibition from the Map Center. So that's just an example. I didn't even have to use a pseudonym, but how a student started with us from working in a classroom where we just came in every once in a while to becoming advisors, facilitators, leading us through the process and affecting what the outcome of our elective looks like, because our elective looks really different thanks to their input than it would have without it. So that's the story of that progression. I'm going to throw it back to Michelle.
Yeah, so to wrap, this is a map, for example, that the students worked on this year from the Muniz Academy, and Lynn and I are in our second week now, I think, of the elective class. So much of what the students worked with us over the summer is embedded in there. And we, one example is the students said they really liked a class where they had journaled every day at the end of class and shared one observation. So that's something that we've built into our practices within the class. So we think a lot, every day about what would our student advisors say about this? And maybe we should ask them, sometime if they would tweak this here and there. So it's just become a really important part of our work, and we're grateful to have been able to do that and want to continue to make that a practice. Thank you.
10 seconds. One of the kids we paid to be an advisor in the student advisory group is using the money we gave to pay for her school books in college, and said that enabled her to pay for the books that she's using to study. And that was meaningful to me.
I just wanted to mention that listening to these last few stories, and I worked with the Map Center, so I saw it in action, but these stories remind me of the phrase that I learned from the independent living movement, which is a civil rights movement for people with disabilities. And that phrase is nothing about us without us. And the concept behind that being that anytime decisions are made or things that affect my life or a group of people's lives, those people who are most directly affected should be in decision-making roles. So like with the Map Center, how they've moved to help, support students to be in decision-making roles about things that affect students. So I just think that as we're listening to these stories, I think it's so valuable to listen with an ear for how are we embodying that concept of nothing about us without us.